Can't just be all dark and negative and conspiracy theorists and everything that goes along with all that crap. Well, folks, today the FDA gave us our evaluation report, and it was all good. So that was a huge stress relief. Sometimes FDA can get in your butthole a little bit and cause an irritation, but all was well. So I can't complain too much of that. That stress is nice to have off the plate, especially with all the other crap this week. Between my wife's medical diagnosis, my looming medical tests, this freaking election, and then now Facebook. Let me talk to you all about Facebook. So I've got a pretty diverse group of friends on Facebook, friends and family, and the vast majority of my Democratic friends are all posting this vile and just disgusting, anti-Trump, crap, saying that if you voted for Donald Trump, you're a racist, sexist, fascist, pig, blah, blah, blah. The whole litany of terrible things you could be. And now I didn't vote for Donald Trump, but when your candidate loses, you gotta take a look at why, and it seems like people want to play it off as the only way Hillary could lose is because racists came out and voted Trump in. And it's funny because, they always want to boil things to this reduced thread. The only way that Hillary loses is if racists mobilize and white supremacists get out and vote. And this is a perfect indication that this country's more racially divided than ever. And I'm just like, what are you talking about? People always point to some of the stupid crap that Donald Trump said. Now, don't get me wrong, it was stupid. But the real issue is that you got two views of Trump, right? You got the people who voted for him, who, in my mind, they took Trump serious, but not literal. Seriously, but not literally. And then the opposite side. The opposite side being, you got a group of people, we'll just say the Democrats, who took Trump literally and not seriously. They didn't think he was a serious candidate. And they literally thought everything he said, he meant literally. Now, that's okay, that's fine. But if you go back and look at all the things that Trump said that were disgusting, the vast majority, if not all of it, he came back and cleaned up later. And in some cases, the very same speech, he would sit there and say something that made it sound like oh yeah, he doesn't like Mexicans, or all Mexicans are rapists, blah, 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 blah. But then later, he would clarify it or clean it up. Trump is not a polished politician. Trump's not a polished politician. He's just a guy that's the head of a movement, and he doesn't have the years experience standing and giving these speeches like a Barack Obama. You know, Barack Obama, to his credit, while I disagree with him pretty much fundamentally, he was a smooth president. He was such a good leader for his cause. You know, like I said, I didn't agree with him on the vast majority of things, but he was my president, and I thought he was a good president. Not my leader as far as what I thought was right, but I think he had good intentions. Trump, he is not charismatic. Charismatic in the same way as someone like Obama. Obama is the kind of president that you just want to like sit down for hours and just BS with the dude, you know? He's got such a great capacity to connect with the common person, you know? And a lot of that comes from the fact that he was not nearly as career a politician as most politicians are. He had a very limited political role, being just a junior senator. Now, he was a community organizer and did a lot of speeches and talks in college, but there was just a natural charisma about President Obama. Trump does not have that. He's a rough and gruff politician without any of that smoothing from being in politics. He says things, and sometimes when he says things, they are absolutely disgusting or terrible, but when you take it in context, it's much simpler to understand what he's saying, especially when he comes back and clears it up. If you're someone who honestly believes that Donald Trump is this racist, misogynist, homophobe, you know, everything that he's being accused of being, go back and really watch. I know it's hard, it's disgusting, I understand. But go back and watch. Don't just trust me. Go back and watch. Or heck, even just search for Donald Trump clarifies, you know, his positions and this, that, and the other. Because it's pretty easy to see what he really meant and what he was really saying. Now, I hate for this to just be a defense for Donald Trump, because I don't think he was the best candidate. The problem is, neither was Hillary. There wasn't a best candidate this election cycle. There was the typical lesser of two evils, But in this case, I mean, it was so bad. Gosh, rock in a hard place. Literally, the rock in the hard place. You're stuck. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. You know, all those old analogies came to fruition this election cycle. Now here's my hope. My hope is that everything he promised to do, make the VA better, take care of our soldiers, man. That to me is probably the most important thing he said, was we need to fix the VA system. Because right now we got guys that went and served our country, got injured, and now they're treated worse than minorities and worse than illegal immigrants, worse than all these other things. And they earned the right to be treated with respect and dignity. And we just cast them aside. And nothing's been done to fix it. It's just as bad today as it was, 3 years ago when it was brought to the mainstream. When people pointed out that you got so many people dying on waiting lists. It's ridiculous. But I have hope that Trump will be a uniter. He's middle of the road. He's not a Republican. He's not conservative. He just became Republican a few years ago. He is a Manhattan liberal. And that's not a knock against him or a negative. That's just what he is. That's what he grew up being. Those are his true political beliefs. So you gotta take him for what he's actually. He's a Democrat at heart. So, with that in mind, he probably will be a very moderate president, and he'll work to cross the aisles and unite this country. As much as people want to try to say that this country is now further divided than ever before, I think we'll come to see that he can bring us back together better than any of the presidents in near recent history. But we'll have to wait and see. That's my prediction. That's my hope, and that's my prediction. But like I said, we'll see. I got to try to find a light in all this situation. I can't just be all dark and negative and conspiracy theorists and everything that goes along with all that crap. Anyway, guys, that's all I got for you today. I'll check back in with you next week. Actually, maybe further this week. I don't know. It's Thursday today. I'm on my way home. Anywho, talk to y'all later. Peace out.